Do you know Chelsea have played both of these sides this season already? And for that reason, I'm siding with Manchester City winning this head-to-head.
Hello and welcome back to the big stage, brought to you by Betting Expert. My name's Joe Ryan. I'll be your host for today's show, where we're going to go through all of Game Week 7's fixtures, giving you some of the best bets as well as from the Betting Expert community, my own predictions and the thoughts of Rory Jennings once again. Rory, I'll bring you into the show. Pleasure to have you on board once again. Talk us through maybe some disappointing results for Chelsea of late.
Yeah, I mean, I've been loving this show, Joe, because ever since you've been kind enough to have me on, things have generally gone my way. You know, Chelsea have been great, Tottenham have been terrible, Arsenal have been struggling, and that's been fantastic. You know, we even watched England get to a final together, which is unknown pleasures for us. But all of a sudden, the appeal of your company is suddenly dwindling as Chelsea become a highlight. It's not been good, and although we've lost to some very intimidating, formidable opposition, the nature of the defeat is problematic, I fear.
Well, let's just take a look at your own predictions, and mine have actually been not so great as well last week, but that could just be down to it being a tough week for predictions in general. So myself and Rory, we are having a picks competition throughout the season, which I am winning at the moment, but Rory, plenty of time for you to turn things around, of course. Like I say, I mean, this one wasn't really a particularly easy week for results. I mean, we both had, well, Man United, didn't expect them to lose, right?
No, nobody could have predicted that. I mean, I think going forward, we will predict it, but I didn't expect it to happen. I didn't expect Aston Villa to get the result that they did and ultimately be really worthy of it. I mean, the nature of that defeat is the stuff dreams are made of as well, isn't it? The fact that they scored, they conceded a really late goal and then missed an even later penalty. Perfection. It's just delicious.
Of course, not for Man United fans, but we'll get to that later on in the show. Of course, our feature games are Man United against Everton, also West Ham against Brentford, and the big one on Sunday, Liverpool against Man City. But let's dive in with our first key fixture of the game week, which is, of course, Man United against Everton. So, Rory, I mean, you touched on it there with the result last week. United really weren't expected to lose to Villa. I've got to raise the question about Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. I mean, is his position now potentially at risk even? What do you make of it?
No, I don't think it is. I think that perhaps it should be. And I think that with the fans will start questioning whether he's the right man to be leading the club. I think that there will be a lot of conjecture in the press as to whether he's the right man to be leading the club. But I think that Ole Gunnar Solskjaer is actually in a fairly solid, strong position because the people who can ultimately make the decision, you know, people like us will have the debate and probably conclude that he isn't the best fit for that job. But the people who can actually make a difference and make a change, I think that they are fairly supportive of him. In fact, I'll go further than that. I think that they are pledging full, aggressive, unilateral support to Solskjaer and the Solskjaer project. So I actually think, whether it's right or wrong that he is in a fairly safe position in his job, I think that he is actually safe.
Now, there is actually a lot of movement in the betting markets of late. We've looked at the first manager to be sacked this season. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer was 40-1 at one point. He's now come into 8-1. So those odds are plummeting. Of course, if they don't get a result at Everton, those odds could come down even further. But let's talk about the game now against Everton, of course, at home. Everton, similar to Aston Villa, struggled at Old Trafford. I think they've only won once there since 1992. But for your side, I mean, how do you see Everton shaping up against United? Is there something that they can really go at now with United struggling?
Yes, I think Everton's strengths are actually going to make them a real force for Manchester United here. I think Rafael Benitez, you know, I have a natural antipathy towards Benitez because of previous from himself. But if you think about the way that he can set a team up, if you think about Rafael Benitez's strengths, he could give Ole Gunnar Solskjaer a real problem here? This isn't a particularly controversial thing to say or insightful, but Rafael Benitez is a better manager than Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. And when you look at the way that Everton play, when you look at the way that he has brought the best out of somebody like Doucouré in the middle, if Doucouré wins that midfield battle, they get the best out of Damari Gray. There is a chance that this could be a really, really problematic day for Manchester United.
Now, you also mentioned the defensive frailty potentially as well for United, with Maguire being out, Shaw's a doubt as well. Do you expect them to, well, Everton to give United a bit of a tough task?
Yes, I think Everton are going to make it really difficult for Manchester United. Everything that we know about Everton and Benitez would indicate that this is going to be very tough for Manchester United. And the other thing that I don't think people acknowledge enough, you know, when you play in Europe, even if you get a win, even if you play at home, even if it's been easy, by the way, winning cumulatively, winning off the back of playing in Europe is very difficult. Your Premier League form will definitely suffer through European competition. It's very, very difficult to win in the week in Europe, playing in the top tier European competition, and then get a win on the weekend. It's not impossible. Of course, teams do it, but European football is wonderful, but it is detrimental to your domestic campaign. And Manchester United had a really tough game. They got a great result, and I'm sure that they're buoyed by that. I'm sure the team is galvanised. It is the most spectacular, the most beautiful way to win a football match is the way that Manchester United won it. Last kick of the game, stealing the points. One of their best ever players scoring the goal. It's beautiful, but it's draining. And the fact that Everton have been able to think about Manchester United for a week, and Manchester United have been able to think about Everton for a couple of days, is also significant.
Now, another key stat as well with regards to United's attacking prowess. I mean, they are creating chances, but they're actually fifth from bottom in the league table when it comes to actually converting big chances. So, of course, Ronaldo coming on board, you think maybe he's going to, turn that around. But, I mean, what do you make of the whole situation with Bruno Fernandes, the penalty as well? Obviously, it was great for me as a Villa fan watching that, but what did you make of it, and how will those two individuals bounce back in the Premier League?
Man of the match that day was Emi Martinez. He did that. He was responsible for that. When you think about Bruno Fernandes and the way that he takes penalties, he is a very, he's almost cutthroat, ruthless penalty taker. He does the hop, skip and a jump, the Jorginho thing, and he knows how to take a penalty. Emi Martinez made him miss. Emi Martinez forced him into missing that penalty because he rubbed him up the wrong way. I think Bruno Fernandes was already thinking about the celebration and how he was going to rub it in Emi Martinez's face. Truly magnificent stuff from Martinez there. The way that he went out and he basically said to Bruno Fernandes, "You shouldn't be taking this, mate. You're good, but he's better than you, so you should let him take the penalty." That got to him. You could see that it affected him. And I am full of nothing but love, admiration, and just everything I like about football and footballers. That kind of conduct represents it.
I do that dance afterwards as well.
Oh, the dance, the little jig in front of the Stretford end to add insult to injury. Yeah, it was phenomenal. But I think he's responsible because I think Bruno Fernandes was just going to slot it home until Emi Martinez started rubbing him up the wrong way.
Now let's take a look at our bet, or the best bet for this game as well. We're taking a look at the community from Betting Expert as well to help put this bet together. So it is a bet builder suggestion looking at both teams to score. So we mentioned the defensive frailties. Everton should be able to get on the score sheet. We're expecting quite a lot of goals as well, over 2.5. But ultimately, perhaps like in the Champions League, Fergie time might prevail. Ronaldo you can't discount as always, but United to win and odds of 3.40 looks like a pretty safe bet. But what do you make of that bet, Rory?
I think it's a good shout. Look, what Manchester United have, and do you know what? The game against Villarreal in the Champions League is a perfect demonstration of this. What Manchester United have is a world-class player at both ends of the pitch. When David De Gea is on the form that he's on, he's one of the best in the world. And the way that he kept them in the game allowed the other world-class player at the other end of the pitch to steal the points. So when you have that in your team, when you have that level of brilliance, that level of superiority, you're always good for a goal. You're always a good bet to win a game. And when Cristiano Ronaldo's around, I'm not ready to write Manchester United out of anything. So I think that bet, the goals, the ultimate win, yeah, I think it's a good one.
Nice one. All right, that's what my pick is as well. I'm going for a United win. Rory, we've got you down for picking the draw in that game. So let's see how that one goes. But now we're going to move on to the rest of the Saturday fixtures in our quickfire predictions. So to start things off, we're going to look at the bottom of the table clash, 19th against 20th. Perhaps not the most attractive game on paper, Rory, but Burnley v Norwich could be an entertaining game because both teams ultimately have to get a win here, don't they?
Yes, I think both teams do, but one team will. I think Burnley are just going to be far too wily and cunning for Norwich. I don't think Norwich have anything about them this season. I think they're such an uninspiring side. I think it's the worst that we've ever had, isn't it? I mean, they're on for Derby County's pitiful record, and I think the sooner Norwich go, the better. You know, and when you say this could be an enthralling game because both teams need to win. I mean, that's possible, but I also think that this one, like you said, it's not particularly appealing fixture on paper. I don't think it's a particularly appealing fixture on grass either. It's this is last on match of the day written all over it, don't you think?
Well, our community is going for a Burnley win as well, a straightforward one. But one key stat I wanted to raise was that no meeting between these two has actually ever been a 0-0 draw. So we could be in for some goals. I'm going for a 1-1. I feel like both teams could cancel each other out. I do fancy Norwich to get a goal at some point this season. I feel like they will get a point at least as well. So this looks like a pretty good one.
What are you doing there, Joe? Are you just doing law of averages? They're going to score at some point. Therefore, It may as well be this weekend.
Why not? And I'm looking at Burnley to go down as well. I want them out of the league, to be honest. I don't think they bring much to the Premier League. So that's why I'm going to try and back Norwich to at least get a point in this one. But now we're going to move on to your beloved Chelsea. They're hosting Southampton at the 3 o'clock kickoff. Now, Chelsea, Rory, what have you made of Chelsea's start so far this season? Obviously went really well to begin with, but then maybe stuttered in the last couple of games.
Yeah, desperately stuttered. I think that the game against Southampton is where you will know whether Chelsea are serious contenders or generally just going to be seen as also rans, because this is where the team earn their money. This is where Thomas Tuchel earns his stripes. This is where the fans in the stadium, and I'm going to be there on the weekend, this is where the fans will make their voices heard, because it's very easy playing football. You know, when things are going well, when you're beating Real Madrid in the European Cup, when you're beating Man City in the final in Porto to become the European champions, life's sweet. Playing Arsenal, everything goes to plan, no problem. Spread it around the Emirates. Romelu Lukaku dictating the play. Life's good. When the chips are down, that's when you step up. That's when you find out the hallmark of this team. That's when you can analyse the resilience. Who are this team? Are they serious? And there are some injury problems that we have to worry about. N'Golo Kante being out is a disaster, really. Mason Mount, anyone that doubted Mason Mount prior to him being away from the team is suddenly aware of quite how important he is. The impetus that he brings to this side it's actually insurmountable. You can't quantify quite how important Mason Mount is, because whoever deputises is actually a shadow of Mason Mount. So this team, we're going to probably be without, we're going to be without Kante. It'll be interesting to see whether Mount plays. But when the full-time whistle blows at Stamford Bridge on Saturday afternoon, Joe, that is when you will know, are Chelsea serious? Have Chelsea bounced back? Have Chelsea answered the critics? Are Chelsea in possession of those 3 points? And if we are, Premier League title charge is on. If we're not, I think it's that significant a match. I think Chelsea will win, but I think it's going to be really tough.
Yeah, similar thoughts from our community as well, actually. We're going for Southampton +1 on the Asian handicap. So, yeah, potentially if Chelsea do win and win by a goal, then that bet will be a push. So you'd get your stake back if you followed that advice. Of course, if it ends a draw, that bets will win. And if Southampton do sneak a win, that bet will be a winner as well. Myself, I'm going for a comfortable Chelsea win, to be honest with you. I feel like Romelu Lukaku should be stepping up against these kinds of teams as well. So I'm going for a comfortable home win in this one. Now we're going to move on to Leeds Watford. Now we have mentioned in previous shows as well about managers and their styles as well. But what have you made of Bielsa's reaction to how poorly Leeds have been doing so far this season?
Well, Leeds are in the relegation zone, and I'm not sure that it's acknowledged enough. I don't think that people are genuinely seeing Leeds as a potential side that could go down. But it wouldn't be surprising at all for them to go down. Remember, lots of teams come up. They have a really good first season. Second season syndrome sets in. And ultimately, normal services resumes. Leeds United aren't in the Premier League. I think that they will probably stay up. But it's games like this where they are going to need to get a result. Like, there is no two ways about it. Leeds United must win at Ellen Road against Watford. If they do not, they are in a relegation scrap and are serious contenders to go down. They've got 3 points. They've got 3 points out of 6 games. I mean, that is just unacceptable. And Marcelo Bielsa, I think, because he's a little bit of a media darling, because apparently only Hansi Flick is better manager than him in world football, which is something I can't get my head around, but apparently that's a fact. Because of those things, people don't seem to think of them as being a team that are in disarray, a team that are really poor. I know they're suffering from injuries, but people don't seem to be giving them the kind of treatment that they deserve. And if they don't win this game, it's going to be fantastic. But they're in a relegation zone. Annoyingly, I think they will win, though.
Well, yeah, you're going for the home win in this one. I'm actually going the other way. I think their struggles are going to continue. You look at Sarr, he's actually had the most shots on target in the whole league, apart from Mo Salah. So he's actually being instrumental for them. He's looking like a revelation as well. Of course, they're trying to replace Troy Deeney. I feel like Watford are doing well enough to warrant them being backed in this game. So I'm going to go for a Watford win. Also, Leeds have never kept a clean sheet on the last 10 home games against Watford as well. Our community are going for a bit of a goal fest in this one, though, looking at over 3 goals. Rory, I know you're going for a low-scoring affair, but how do you see that bet shaping up? Do you expect a lot of goals?
I think that Leeds, like, I kind of think that Leeds are just going to get it right, and it will click for them. And I've predicted that Leeds will win the game 2-0. But hearing the way that you've put that together, and you've got some fantastic facts there, Joe. I don't know if you're pulling them out of the bag yourself, but they're very impressive. Am I allowed to change it? I don't want to ruin the graphic. I don't want to ruin the lads that made the graphics. But am I allowed to amend my scoreline? I think
we'll go with your opinion for your picks, and then we can change it maybe as the season goes. Then we can adjust your thinking as the season goes. Yeah, we're going to keep your opinion and your bets.
Okay, I'll keep it. I'll keep it 2-0 then. I'll keep it 2-0 Leeds.
That's cool. One small note as well with regards to Bielsa. He's actually moved as well in the betting for the sack race from 25-1 into 16-1. So there has been a bit of money on Bielsa to be sacked as well. I know that's a bit of a long shot right now, but something to be aware of. But I'm going to move on to the next game on Saturday. We're going to focus on Wolves against Newcastle. Now here, of course, Wolves are the slight favourites. An amazing story as well with Raul Jiminez coming back and getting his first goal after the injury.
What a goal as well.
And what a great goal as well. Yeah, opportunistic from the long kick from the goalkeeper. But yeah, Rory, what have you made of Wolves' start to the season and also Newcastle's?
I found Wolves fairly uninspiring. They just can't score goals, can they? I mean, that's their issue. They just can't score goals. And every time I feel like, they're going to get it together, they get a win, I think, right, they're going to use that win to galvanise a team, use it as a bit of a springboard to kick on. They seem to lose their next game. So Wolves seem to just have no consistency. Newcastle seem to have loads of consistency, on the other hand, just not winning. It seems to be I don't think they've won a game all season, have they, Newcastle?
No.
And Steve Bruce has got to be one of the most uninspiring managers in world football, in the entire world. There isn't a less inspiring manager than Steve Bruce. But the reason I think Newcastle will be okay is, firstly, they're judged on a very different yardstick to everyone else. People think that they should be challenging for at least Europa League spot, and I don't think that's the case at all. Also, their owner will be very, very forgiving towards Bruce. As long as he keeps them in the league, that is success. And with some of their players, I just think that they've got enough players to accrue enough points across the season to ultimately survive. And it will be games like the game against Wolverhampton where they can get enough. I think Alan St. Maximin, for example, will be the best player on the pitch that day, and will therefore, I just think that they will get wins enough to stay in the league. And if I believe they'll stay up, which I do, it's games against the likes of Wolverhampton Wanderers where they will need to pick up maximum points.
Now, just a quick comment as well on Steve Bruce. Before the season started, I did say he'd be the value pick for the sack race. He is now into 3-1 joint favourite with Nuno as well. So yeah, hopefully you've been backing that, because it looks like it might actually come in. But our prediction from the community is actually for under 2.5 goals in this one. But Rory, I think both of us are actually looking at this in a different way. I'm expecting a lot of goals here, but how do you see it going?
I think it will be fairly tight, actually. I'm going for a 2-1 away win.
and I'm going the opposite. So I'm going for Wolves a 3-1 win. I feel like now Jiminez has got that first goal. I feel like, yeah, he could just actually go ahead and convert those chances they've been getting a lot more frequently. So yeah, we're actually completely divided on this one, but let's see how that prediction comes. Well, yeah, we'll review it next week. Now we're going to move on to the next game on the list. So we got Brighton against Arsenal. Now what a turnaround it's been for Arsenal, obviously losing their first 3, but then winning the next 3 as well. So yeah, you said the London derby would have been Arteta's kind of turning point. But how have you seen Arsenal's resilience and how they've performed in those last 3 games compared to the first 3?
I think you and I, Joe, were fairly good for not writing Arsenal off, after those first 3 defeats. I think you and I were fairly level-headed and said there is a reason for each result. Each result can be explained away for different reasons. And we didn't start saying Arteta out there. But equally, I feel like we should maintain that equilibrium and acknowledge that although winning 3 on the bounce is significant, we can also explain them away, can't we? They've played Burnley away from home, been really, really poor. They played Norwich at home, of course they've won. And they've played one of the most pitiful Tottenham teams in recent memory. And there's a few contenders there. So, again, I don't want to get... I feel like Arsenal are going to win on the weekend. I don't want anybody to think that I'm just belittling them. But I think that just in the spirit of not being too reactionary, we should acknowledge that Arsenal's performances so far, they don't signify that there has been a great change. I think the result against Tottenham was significant. I think the nature of it, in fact, rather than the result itself, I think the nature of it. And look, winning in the derby is always, I know it's only 3 points, but it's a bit like the Animal Farm book. Remember that George Orwell book where you go, all animals are equal, but some are more equal than others. The winning in the North London derby is a bit the same, isn't it? It's a bit like all points are equal, but some are more equal. And the fact that Arsenal got the 3 points there, it is massive. The nature of it, the thing that impressed me most about that Arsenal victory was the kind of pettiness that Arsenal displayed, the aggression, the sinister side. There were 2 moments that I thought, this is good. This is good for Arsenal. Aubameyang ran through, and I think he was flagged offside, but he decided to just career into Eric Dyer anyway. I rate that. And then even better, Mikel Arteta went way up in my estimation when he held the ball out. I think for Tanganga to take a throw in, just held it out, waiting for him to take it. Just as Tanganga was about to pick the ball up, he dropped it on the floor. That is the kind of spirit that I think Arsenal needs. That sort of slightly more spiteful, slightly more edgy approach to the game. So it was a big result. I think Ben White had a coming of age moment, bullying Harry Kane. That Tommy Yasu looked fantastic, subdued Son. But it's a pitiful Tottenham team. So let's see.
Well, we'll get to Tottenham in a moment as well. But what about Granit Xhaka? He's going to be out for Arsenal. I mean, how instrumental, how pivotal will that injury be, do you think, for Arsenal's momentum?
That's really, really, really bad news. Really bad news for Arsenal, which is, I mean, it's weird to say that about Granit Xhaka. But the link-up play between Xhaka and Thomas Partey, I thought was brilliant. Because I thought that it was a fairly uninspiring formation. When I saw the teams, I was working that day, funnily enough, in Finsbury Park, which is an awful place to be on that day for me. But I was working in Finsbury Park itself, and I saw the team sheet, and I saw Xhaka and Partey on the same team. I thought, that's 2 holding midfielders at home against Tottenham, a very beatable Tottenham team in a must-win fixture. 2 holding midfielders. I'm not sure, Michail. I'm not sure that's right. It was brilliant. They were actually very conducive to the attack. They started a lot of the attacks. I thought it was really good. So him limping off was probably the only bad thing that happened to Arsenal that day. So how they cope without him, he's kind of irreplaceable as well. I don't think there's anyone in the Arsenal ranks that can do that. Do they throw in the kid? Does Lokonga get the nod? Be interesting to see. But big result for Arsenal. I feel like they'll use it as a springboard, and ultimately, I think they would. I think Arsenal will win.
Now, let's give a quick shout out as well to Brighton manager Graham Potter. He's actually nominated for Manager of the Month as well. Our community bet for this one is over 2.25 goals. So just talk us through what you've made of Brighton so far to be up amongst the leaders and looking like they deserve it.
I think people are getting carried away. Look, this doesn't resonate with anyone that ever hears me talk about Brighton, but I don't think they're particularly good. It's not that I don't think Potter's a very good manager. I understand what he's doing, what he's building. It's very impressive. but I'm not quite there where everyone else seems to be around Brighton. I'm not quite there, and I anticipate that Brighton will finish the season somewhere south of mid-table. So one of us is going to be correct, because you're on the hype train with Brighton, aren't you?
A little bit, yeah. I just love the XG numbers, and it seems like they're finally put those to bed from last season. They're actually scoring goals this year, so as long as they keep creating chances, then they should be doing pretty well. Now let's move on to Palace against Leicester. It's our next game up as well. Now this is over on Sunday. Now this one's a pretty close one in terms of the betting markets. The bookies can't really split this one. Our community best bet is to look at Palace on the draw no bet market. But Rory, just take us through this one. How do you think Palace will shape up? And Leicester, ultimately, they've been quite disappointing compared to expectations.
Well, Leicester need to win. If I don't think they will. I think Leicester are dreadful, and I don't want to say I told you so about Brendan Rodgers, but I did tell you so. But I like, when you look at Leicester's form again, it's so bad. They had a big win fairly recently, and I thought, that's going to be the moment, and then lost straight away after it. And you just think, they haven't quite got that resilience, that determination, that hunger that they once had. And I think it's a very tricky game for them against Palace. I think going to Palace isn't going to be easy. It's never easy, Selhurst Park. It's a very old stadium. They make a racket in there as well. I don't think Palace will have enough to beat Leicester. But equally, I don't rate Leicester highly at all at the moment. And I think this has got a 1-1 draw written all over it.
I'm of a similar mindset. I mean, look at the stats as well. Palace have had the fewest shots on target in the whole league, so I don't think they're going to really present much of a challenge for Leicester. I'm going for Leicester to edge it. I think they will get the away win, but let's see how, again, that prediction does. We'll review that next week. Now, moving on to the other game on Sunday at 2 o'clock, we got Spurs against Villa. Now, yeah, it's time to talk about Tottenham in disarray at the moment. What is going on? Rory, talk us through it. I mean, you must be loving it.
Let's just do the whole episode on this. Yeah, I mean, it's truly sensational, isn't it? And I mean, we could see this coming, but they are so average. And do you know the thing that I found most insightful about the game where Arsenal walloped them? That was their team. I mean, maybe Bergwijn would have featured, maybe Bergwijn would have played, but generally speaking, no big players out, nobody noteworthy away from the starting lineup. That's as good as it's going to get for Tottenham this season. That is it. And so many of that team are so average. Like Eric Dyer, still starting. Like Eric Dyer apparently was good. I mean, I remember being in Marseille in the south of France, watching Eric Dyer score a free kick against Russia. That was in 2016. That was a long time ago. And I thought he was rubbish then. The fact that he is still starting for Tottenham is just truly ridiculous. I think that Nuno Espirito Santo isn't a particularly good manager. I think Tottenham fans probably agree with me. I think Daniel Levy certainly agrees with me. That's why they try to employ anyone aside from him. And I think something that is so significant about this Tottenham team, Arsenal and Tottenham were at opposite ends of the league table. This is the fastest ever switch. It's the fastest. A team from bottom of the league has overtaken a team top of the league in 3 games. That has never happened before.
No.
So I think that Nuno Espirito Santo presiding over that embarrassing fact is really interesting, and long may it continue.
Well, again, if you look at the sack race betting, Nuno, when Spurs were flying high at the top of the league, he was around 33-1 to be sacked first. He's now 3-1 joint favourite. So I think that tells you a lot as well.
Do you know what's amazing? Do you know what's amazing, Joe, as well? I counted it, right? From today, 17 days ago today, Nuno Espirito Santo was manager of the month.
That's it. What a fall from grace that is. Yeah, but looking at our community bet, for this one, we've got Aston Villa plus a quarter. So again, taking that momentum from Old Trafford, that great win. Also the win against Everton as well, don't forget. Villa are in good form at the moment. So it looks like, even though the bookies are favouring Spurs, the home win, according to the bookmakers, looks like the most likely result. But we're going for Villa. I think myself as well, I'm going for a Villa win in this one. But Rory, just talk us through your prediction for the game at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium.
I think Villa are brilliant. I've seen Aston Villa play twice this year already because they played Chelsea in the League Cup as well. Both times they've been brilliant. Chelsea battered Villa 3-0, and weirdly, Aston Villa were probably one of the best teams Chelsea have faced this year, despite it finishing 3-0. I think that the way that Dean Smith is probably the most underrated manager in the league as well. I think that they're truly brilliant, and Aston Villa are going to win at Tottenham. It's going to be a dominating. It's going to be the biggest dominating performance in that stadium since Usyk.
Exactly. Well, of course, shout out to Dean Smith as well, being nominated for Manager of the Month. But now we're going to move on to our next feature game, West Ham against Brentford. So, Rory, I mean, at the start of the season, you were writing Brentford off, but they have had some pretty decent results of late, sitting 9th in the table as well. Not a lot of us expected that to happen, but do you still hold that view that Brentford will go down?
No, I just have to concede this one, don't I? I got it completely wrong. I thought that Brentford didn't have a prayer. I'm so impressed. I'm so impressed by them. And yeah, like I say, I have to eat a lot of humble pie here because I did get this totally and utterly wrong. I thought they were sensational against Liverpool. I think their manager is a breath of fresh air. I love the way he talks about the game. I was listening to him on a podcast actually, and he seems like a really personable bloke. He's always talking about celebrating every game with a nice glass of red. I reckon we could be good mates. I really do like him. And now the question isn't about whether they stay up. I mean, I'm sure they're focusing on staying up. I'm sure their target is the 40 point barrier. But ultimately, they've played 6. They've got 9 points. They're a point off Aston Villa. Everybody's talking about Aston Villa probably getting into the Europa League, or at least challenging for it. Maybe Brentford can start thinking along those lines. Maybe they should start reaching for the sky, because they have the players, they have the system, they're brave. The way they took the game to Liverpool, not many people expected them to do that. To overload Trent Alexander-Arnold would potentially leave space in other areas of the pitch, but they weren't too fussed about that. They're amazing. And yes, Joe, I got it wrong, mate.
Well, of course, if you look at the betting, I think we pulled up the graphic as well a minute ago. Brentford were odds on, so it wasn't a bold prediction from yourself, but they are now out to 6-1 to be relegated. But let's talk a bit about West Ham as well, what a start they've made. Michail Antonio as well, firing in the goals for the Hammers. He has now come in from 80-1 into 25-1 to be the top goal scorer in the Premier League this season. I mean, just talk us through what you've made of his performances so far and where do you think his career can go from here?
I love him. I think he's brilliant. I mean, he's already West Ham's top goal scorer in Premier League era, isn't he? Scored more goals than any other player for West Ham in the Premier League. So that's a huge milestone there for him, although weirdly low amount of goals needed to hit that milestone. But I think he's great. I think the problem for West Ham will be the fact that they didn't really back David Moyes in the transfer market in that position. The fact that they didn't bring in a striker, they haven't replaced Sebastian Haller, is potentially problematic. I think Michail Antonio has commitments coming up with Jamaica, so he's going to be away. And how they can cope without him, I do not know, because he is everything that's good about them, isn't he? Personified. Everything that's good about West Ham United, the way they play the game, it all stems from Michail Antonio. And you look at the goal he scored against Leeds United last week. Brilliant finish, but the way that he took it as well, it was a statement moment for West Ham. The fact that they came back from Europe, went to Ellen Road, potentially banana skin game, slapped them up, and now they're another side. This isn't a fluke. Last year, people were thinking, "Oh, can they do it again?" And they certainly can. So with Antonio there firing, I mean, he's not going to get the golden boot, I'm sure of that. But if he could hit 15, 16, 17 goals, which would be a massive moment. And how many points will that win for West Ham on their quest to qualify for the Champions League even?
Yeah, and one other player that stands out for me as well is Said Benrahma. I feel like he's stepped up. He's showing his potential. He's shown glimpses of it in the past, but now he's actually stepping up to the big stage of the Premier League and doing really well as well. But let's talk about Brentford and their attacking options. Fun start with their 8 goals. They've had 7 different goal scorers. So how do you see is that an issue for them, do you think, going forward without a clear focal point, clear goal scorer? Or is it just, like you say, that team system that works so well, they're getting results?
Yeah, no, I think you can spin it either way, can't you? I think you can say, oh, you haven't got that spearhead, you haven't got that focal point, and you potentially suffer from that. or you can have over a half dozen players all capable of scoring double figures. What's better? I like the idea of both, really. But if you think from Gundogan up, all of the players that play in that squad, anybody that is like Gundogan will probably hit 10, and that's not even really his responsibility. Grealish is always good for a goal. Kevin De Bruyne always good for a goal. Mahrez, Sterling, it's an endless array of players that will score goals for them. So that in itself is very threatening. You know, like when you think about their goal scorers, Ferran Torres, how many is he going to get this season? Phil Foden, how many is he going to get this season? There are so many players in the City ranks capable of scoring goals. I don't think any side in world football has more match winners. They might not have the obvious match winner. They might not have the Lukaku, the Salah, the Kane in theory, but they do have a vast array of match winners. And for that, it certainly compensates their lack of an obvious striker.
So to sum up our best bet for this game, West Ham against Brentford, I'm expecting a lot of goals in this one. So going for both teams to score. We mentioned that Brentford do have some attacking prowess, a lot of goal scorers potentially. Ultimately, I feel like West Ham will be too strong as well. Antonio to get on the score sheet with given the form he's in, his individual talent, the strength that he has as well. So Rory, let us know, what do you make of this bet? Do you think it is a reasonable one?
I think it's a good one. I think it's a really good one. I think Brentford, despite their brilliance against Liverpool, that's going to take something out of them. And ultimately, they are going to drop a lot of points. The way that they play the game, that expansive style, a side like West Ham will find a way of exploiting that. And I rate David Moyes so highly. Michail Antonio always due a goal. So yes, I'm fully supportive of that bet. I think it's a good one.
Great stuff. Now let's move on to the last game of the game week, the big one. First against second, Liverpool against Man City. So, of course, the standout fixture of the weekend is Liverpool against Man City. The last two Premier League winners coming head to head. Bookies are finding this one hard to split. Man City do get the edge. But Rory, I mean, just talk us through the starts that these two both have made and how do you see the match playing out?
Do you know, Chelsea have played both of these sides this season already. And for that reason, I'm siding with Manchester City winning this head-to-head. It's going to be tough. You know, the history between Liverpool and Man City, it tells us that it's always going to be a pulsating, thrilling game. And the general end to that game is City being happier. Of course, there are the anomalies, but generally, I think City are likely to get the win. Liverpool have had their big moments, obviously knocking them out of the Champions League and whatever, but there was a 5-0 recently, wasn't there? And that's definitely in my mind. But having watched Chelsea play both City and Liverpool, it's where I can definitely conclude that City are stronger. Chelsea played against Liverpool at Anfield, looked dominant, to be honest, and then even when down to 10 men, looked comfortable. We couldn't get the ball off Man City. We just couldn't get the ball off them when they were at their most vulnerable. And look, it's going to be a very difficult game for City because they're coming off the back of one of the worst weeks in football. They're coming off the back of a trip to Paris and a trip to Stamford Bridge. So they will be cream crackered. But I do anticipate City just having too much for this Liverpool team.
Of course, Liverpool as well, conceding 3 against Brentford. Trent Alexander-Arnold is going to be out as well, most likely. I mean, but do you think James Milner is a decent enough replacement, or how much do you think that's going to change the dynamic of Liverpool's approach to the game?
It changes the way Liverpool play the game because the fullbacks are so the fullbacks are dependent on that system, and the system is dependent on those fullbacks. So I don't think that Klopp can adopt his usual system. But what I would say is that if there's ever where you want James Milner to game against City, playing against his old club, I don't think he's got a especially good relationship with his former club. He's a brilliant defender, a brilliant all-round player, and I think it's fair to say that he's probably a better defensive fullback than Trent Alexander-Arnold. He may not offer everything that Alexander-Arnold offers, but in terms of defending, in terms of being up against Jack Grealish, who's more likely to subdue Jack Grealish? I think you make a case for James Milner. So overall, it could be a blessing in disguise that Trent Alexander-Arnold isn't available for this fixture.
Now, if you look again at then City's defensive record, I don't think they actually faced a shot on target against, well, Chelsea, also Arsenal and Norwich. So quite formidable in their defensive setup. I mean, how do you think they're going to handle Liverpool's attacking prowess, obviously Jota, Mane, Salah. I mean, do you expect City to keep a clean sheet in this one, or how do you see that one going?
No, no. I don't think that they'll be able to keep City out for the 90. I don't think that they'll be able to keep Liverpool out for the 90. I do think they'll win the game, City, but I don't think they'll be able to subdue Salah. Like, Salah on form is just so good, and he's never not on form. So I rate their chances of scoring very highly. But City's defence were brilliant against Chelsea. They stopped Lukaku in his tracks. Chelsea didn't have a shot on target in that game, so they can definitely quell the attack that Liverpool will offer. I think it will be tight. But when you look at the personnel across that City back line, it really is brilliant, isn't it? So I think that if get it right, City, they will win this game, and I'm inclined to say that they will.
Now, also an interesting stat, we look at again the XG conceded by the Man City defence. They rank first. It's 2.8 over 6 games is quite incredible. But kind of how big a gap do you see it being between City and the likes of Chelsea, Liverpool? I mean, is it growing now? We said that maybe they had the similar starting 11s, but from what you've seen so far, are they just a step above everyone else?
I'm beginning to think they are, City. You know, I'm beginning to think they are. When you look at the amount of match winners in the team, it's huge. I also think that in terms of squad depth, I honestly believe this. I was ridiculed for saying this, but I honestly think that City have 2 teams capable of finishing in the top 4. If City could enter a second into the league, I think finishes in the top 4. But when you look at the players on their bench, when you look at the players not starting for them, it's unbelievable. And over the course of a season, of course, one-off games, people can get results against them. But over the course of a full season, I just think that Guardiola's brilliance, the squad depth, and the match winners will prove too much for anyone to compete with.
Now, let's just talk about a little bit the style of play as well. So City, of course, are so good at keeping the ball, but on the flip side, Liverpool are actually the highest in terms of pressing stats. So passes per defensive action, Liverpool are actually leading that on the lowest amount of passes they're allowing. So they're getting at teams. So, I mean, how do you see which way will it go first? What will crack, basically? Will the creativity of City or the pressing of Liverpool?
I think it's very difficult to predict it. I think that's what it will come down to. Whose system works? Who has the best night on the night? But maybe I'm being slightly biased here because the whooping that Manchester City dished out at Stamford Bridge is so raw in my mind. It's such an open wound still. But I'm struggling. You know, I think the way that we're having this conversation is that it's going to be tight and it could go either way. I agree with the first part. I think it will be tight. I don't think there'll be much in it. I think there'll be goals, but I think that there'll only be, a goal that will separate the 2 teams. But in terms of it going either way, I honestly find even the potential of Liverpool winning this game almost unfathomable. I'm just so blown away by how good City are and how good they were at Stamford Bridge. I also think the game against Paris Saint-Germain, I know it didn't go their way, but circumstance. Bernardo Silva misses an open goal. If that goes in, it's a totally different story. Also, Lionel Messi doing what he does there, playing that 1-2 and brilliant assist for Mbappe. You can't deal with that. You can't that isn't a statement about who City are. No one can deal with that. When Messi, which is always going to happen, when Messi opens his Parisian account, whoever's standing in the way is going to get blown out the door, and that's what happened. So I could be wrong. On some level, I'd like to be wrong. But this City team do intimidate me.
Now, speaking of intimidation, I mean, I'm looking at the fact that Anfield should be rocking. It should give Liverpool a little bit of assistance. I know they're missing some defenders as well, Trent obviously being out. I myself am going for a Liverpool win. And our community best bet as well is also looking at Liverpool or the draw as being a good suggestion. Similar to what we're always thinking in terms of over 2 goals, so expecting some goals in the game. And also looking at both teams to receive a yellow card in the game. That's available at odds of 100 to 30 in this one. But Rory, just from your experience of watching City and Liverpool, do you expect it to be a bit feisty, potentially, given the Anfield, the crowd, and obviously, the history as well? Talks of like Milner as well. Do you expect there to be cards shown?
Yes, this is a spiky, fiery fixture. It's become it's never a derby, but the city of Liverpool and the city of Manchester, when they clash, it matters. And I think that this game it's a highly flammable fixture. And look, that booking thing that happens. I don't even think like that happens. I do genuinely think that a booking on either side. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Like there's jeopardy whether there's a red card. I think there's a good chance there's a red card. But in terms of both teams receiving a minimum of 1 booking each, yeah, that's in the bag. This is a season-defining fixture. There is so much at stake. The levels of jeopardy on display at Anfield are mind-blowing. Of course, the players are going to be irate with each other. Of course, the tackles are going to be flying in. There's so much at stake that happens. I just disagree on the thing. I just think that City are going to be too strong.
So let's have your score prediction for Liverpool Man City then.
I think it's going to be a brilliant game of the season so far, but I think City edge it. Liverpool 2, Man City 3.
That'll be a great game. I'm going the other way. I'm expecting Liverpool to actually get a result. But yeah, let's see how that goes. We'll review it next week. But Rory, as always, pleasure to have you on board on the big stage. Thanks a lot for your predictions. And we'll be back next week to discuss how we both get on.
An honour. Thanks for having me. See you next week, Joe. Loved it.
Thanks a lot. And now if you want to post your own predictions on Betting Expert and have them feature on the big stage, head on over to bettingexpert.com where there are tips on multiple events, multiple sports, every single day. But for now, thanks a lot for watching. And of course, if you do place a bet, as always, please do gamble responsibly.